they can broadcast on YouTube for up to 8 hours now.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's an improvement. All right.
Ryan just
Boy.
like in
Yay!
It
He just made it.
nasty.
It was partially.
Potentially
Partially.
Yes, welcome to the Tolkien Society May 2014 monthly meeting and broadcast. And we're just getting set up here, but I want to let everybody know we are here, just running 3 minutes behind. But we're getting ready, so I want to make sure we're out here streaming and give everybody a chance to get on the stream, etc. So we'll be just a few minutes before we're talking, but we are here getting set up.
And also, if they want to, they can refer to.
Yes, take a look at our previous,
Yep, it's on the website. So they can
When you join the Hangout, you can post those links in there somehow. I still don't know how to get them to be in the video. You have to click on a plus link to see it. But anyway.
It's letters 84 to 89.
84 to 89.
Those of you who want to look those up, perhaps, and get a little sneak preview of what we're going to be talking about today as part of our thing. And do you have Vingar along with you?
I think I had the same one I had in.
You want to have that for later.
Okay.
To pick out a way.
Right. Thank you. Forgot about that.
No problem.
My Mac is being serviced right now, so I've grabbed my Alienware, which I haven't used in a while except for music.
Okay.
Trying to get it ready. What does I want to do on
Oh,
my?
it's got. I like your little tab up there for recording there. It's a nice.
Which what?
No, it's just a nice little one for recording. I like your little one there.
Oh, I just shrank the window. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's a nice, lightweight kind of portable.
Brian, you turned it.
You mean on Surface?
Never mind.
Are you not the laptop device?
Me, a Neanderthal, talking about computers.
That's
I
right.
got a little tablet thing
Yeah.
with a detachable.
Oh right, yeah. It's a Microsoft Surface Pro 2.
Okay.
So it's I've been using it up there. I've had the Mac and it opposite each other.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it before, but I like it.
Yeah.
And then you realize she's distracting you when you're trying to say.
I am. Separate him off from this love-hate relationship.
Yeah. Indeed.
I hate all.
I think it's like the board, you know. The moment you think you know what you're doing, it's
Did you say it's like the board?
the board. Yeah. What do they always say? Next gen, they'd say like, it's not recalibrated, but
Assimilated?
no, adapted. So as soon as they'd shoot it, and then the board would adapt to whatever they were
Right,
using.
the frequency or whatever. Yeah.
And at one point, Captain Picard realized that if you use bullets, you don't have an issue.
Really? Damn.
So he used holographic bullets.
I don't know.
He disabled the safety protocol.
Darn it, why would you ever disable a safety protocol on a holodeck? That's just like asking for trouble, you know.
Yeah, that's just
Oh, I think
suicide.
that's unsafe.
Did you go through the entire section of Moriarty?
All right.
Almost
All right.
all of it. Almost all of it. I don't think I ever saw the first one of Moriarty.
Oh, really?
Well, no, I did actually.
Yeah, Data doing the whole Sherlock Holmes thing.
Right. And then this guy pops up, and they realize that it
He's
doesn't
a
apply
chief
to him.
sentience.
He
Yeah.
knows how to disable the safety protocol.
Yeah. I don't remember how it.
That thing is a death
Wait,
trap.
the very last episode of Next Gen wasn't that?
No.
No.
The one with the.
No,
Yeah, that was with
Q.
Q and
No,
3
but-
different time periods in her.
But there was some
They were
closure.
dressed up though in a different time period.
There was some closure with Moriarty towards the end where he,
Yeah, it was close. It was the last season, but not.
but it
Oh,
was
okay.
definitely.
Somebody pointed
There
out
were
that
some safety protocols that were
as often as the hologram
disabled.
the hologram
Definitely.
safety protocols yeah, it's a death trap.
We call this
You think
holodeck.
OSHA would ban
We call
holograms?
this holodeck the Venus flytrap.
You think OSHA would forbid the use of holodecks?
I think it's all
Navy vessels.
I think it's an elaborate metaphor for how we're amusing ourselves to death in contemporary America.
Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame has a whole album called "Amused to Death." And the human race has amused itself to death.
Yes. Real close to me.
Well, it was the only Gulf War I protest album.
Wow. That is part of the problem of Rome, and it's the problem of this Western society as well. How's that?
The amusing
Right,
stuff.
circus.
Or
Science fiction.
at least
Thank you for that.
We'll be kicking us out soon.
yeah, at least I lost my train of thought.
Got derailed.
It was a long train. Therefore, more weight on the tracks.
Right, the circus.
More slowed.
Entertainment.
Yes, Rome. It's the problem with Rome. You see.
At least economically, the entertainment began to drain on the society, but that the society entertaining itself led to decreased production and a lot of people who just were on the dole instead of doing something useful for society. Doesn't have to make money, it just has to be useful to society.
I think you're draining fans. No offense.
No offense.
No, there's no offense
Did
involved.
it hard and enjoyed fencing.
So it's
Now that is a question that has been unanswered.
What's that?
If Sulu and Picard were in a fencing match, who would win? Ooh.
well, at the time, Sulu's dead by the time Picard showed up.
Was he, or was,
No,
it was a
he
crossover?
was just on a different
He
ship.
was a commander. He was an admiral.
No, they're Sulu. The character Sulu is from a couple generations back.
But in the movies, though, like in the Generations one,
There's some
Yeah,
travel.
right. But Picard and Sulu don't go on that.
They still won't do it right.
Picard and Captain Kirk. I mean Kirk. Captain Kirk.
would not be able to get on.
It's still the linking with YouTube. They still, Google Plus keeps breaking it.
Well,
Like I keep getting it fixed and then they like change it back. So that so there's a simple link. You can just go to youtube.com/Tolkien to view our stream, and it keeps getting reverted to the gibberish ones,
Gibberish.
to useless ones.
so is that because of so when people try to watch?
They're not able to watch because it just shows that we have no videos on that channel.
So we're broadcasting, but not where people need to see it.
Right.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
All of a sudden, I can't connect to it. I imagine I have to do with the broadcast.
Well, I'm split between my cell phone and, but there's other people here. As soon as somebody there starts to download or peer-to-peer, it chokes them that way.
I'll get out the baseball bats.
Why are you a baseball bat? I'm
The internet mafia.
See, it went under North Radio again. Bloody heck. I went through this whole hassle last month to change it all over, and they reverted it. Alright, it's on the North Radio instead of Tolkien Brothers again.
Well, I guess it's a workaround.
Yeah.
I'm just telling Jeremiah. He replied back to me yesterday, so I'll just
Alright, well, at least that's something that's usable for people.
Okay, so it's supposed to be on where?
YouTube.com/Middle-earth Radio, all one word, no hyphen.
Middle. So that's middle. So it's two
Middle
E's.
Earth Radio, yeah, 2 E's.
Okay.
No hyphen.
That's it.
Well, if you scream loudly at a tech support person, they might actually be able to help. Maybe.
If they're automated stuff.
Google.
Well, the monkey might pass it up the chain of command to somebody who actually has, skill.
Just like my ordering a DOCSIS 2.0 cable modem. And they expired them in January. But then telling them, look, this very same model was used in this very same location 4 days ago, and you're gonna hook it back up. And it worked. They actually did it. That's good. I just had to go through a couple people to get them to do it.
Tech support slaves.
Well, I'm officially a felony flats landlord now.
Ooh.
Money flats.
That area down near Monroe and Maple near the river, just a little north of. Yeah. When I first moved to Spokane, I was going to stay temporarily at a place there. I didn't know better. And I was surveying places to actually stay longer term. And I had an uncle interviewing and went, "Why don't you just stay with us?"
Well, we stayed for 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Good for you. So this
Was
is
that
because you moved
exciting?
out, and so now you're renting it out.
Yeah.
Well,
We
the area-
moved to that other evil school called the Oaks, within walking distance.
Yeah, that's nice for you to be closer, because otherwise it's a bit traffic.
The area that we're in is a bit seedy.
It's so quiet where we are now.
Nice. And there's some good walking areas there too. Up the hill. I mean, you're not far away from some decent walking. I think.
Yeah.
Richard's the champion walker here. You walk a lot.
Ride our bikes to a distant hills trailhead and
Nice.
go.
Absolutely.
Okay, Owen's in there.
Good.
Or Johan, sorry.
Go hard to meet.
Welcome, welcome. We're slowly getting it all linked together here.
More super glue.
Well,
Are we at the event horizon of a black hole, so our time is slowing down for us?
If we're within the event horizon, there's no escape.
It's like there's a whirlpool and we're just coming to the edge and getting pulled back into it.
Yep.
No, but you gotta find a crack in the event horizon. So
yeah, the practice and seriously is what
and then there was a Voyager episode where they got sucked into past the event horizon of the black hole.
I was actually thinking of an SG-1 episode where it leaked through the Stargate
Yeah.
into Earth.
Well, that makes
That was fun.
somewhat sense.
The gravitational.
Gravitational lensing effect. With the Voyager one, they discovered a crack in the event horizon that escaped through. It's a field effect. It's not going to crack.
Mm-hmm.
Finding a source.
we're going through the original Star Trek episodes of the first season, and
Of the first third.
yeah, it's some stuff I've never seen before. They did time travel early.
Yeah.
So we're about to broadcast here, and
Just so you know, we're broadcasting live
As
over
long
the
as you guys don't
internet.
mind.
If you don't mind being
We're
on
on the
there.
internet.
you're at the very far back there, so.
You're in the background.
We'll do some type of photobot work.
Nice.
All right.
I want to song and dance.
Or if you're at all interested in anything related to Tolkien and his works or
Lord of the Rings.
derivatives, that's it's Tolkien
I
Society.
could be the guest IT director.
Can you do a health and life dance?
Who?
Can you do an Elven line dance?
I've been.
What?
No, Elvin. Elves don't do.
Well, we're pretty good at second breakfast.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to get my first lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't yet. All right. Do you want to go ahead and start going over
Yeah,
the
you want to
meeting
get
notes?
something while I'm reading notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got some food.
Keep alive. It's always to be recommended. Would you like to?
Would I like to? Since I was not at the last meeting, I can read the notes.
Okay, you do that.
Oh, a volunteer.
So Brian read the
Well, hold on.
April 26th.
Well, so did Hawk say at the beginning, do you welcome to?
No, he didn't.
All right, I'm quick do an interjection here. So welcome to the monthly meeting of the Tolkien Society, and our SMEAL meets every month at the Rocket Bakery on Hastings. And so today we're going to be meeting till about 3 o'clock.
Must not be hasty.
That's right. So Chris is going to read our notes from last month in his least a hasty voice as he can.
Okay. The SMEAL of the Tolkien Society for April 26th attended Hawk, Drake, Richard, Brian, and absent Christopher. Brian read the March notes, which was discussed. The Robin Hood connection was explored. Tolkien never wrote about Robin Hood to our knowledge. Hawk introduced a new feature of our meetings, learning Elvish words from the old Vanya Tenwa magazine. Word of the month is Dole, English 10. Dole, Dole, Dole.
Exactly.
The latest issue of Pen was commented on, which I have yet to read, but is on my reading list. It was noted that Peter Jackson has retitled his third installment of the Hobbit films, The Battle of Five Armies. No big surprise there.
Right. I mean, that's a lot more catchy than Here and Back Again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
turning home.
Brian read JRT letter 81. References were made to Pearl, the Inklings. Ooh, I read Pearl a while ago.
Yeah.
What chapter of JRT was writing Lothar, Frodo, and Sam and everything? Drake read letter 82, reference Gandalf, King of Golden Hall chapter. Hawk read letter 83, but this letter is full of Tolkien's literary circle, tough to absorb all the connections and allusions in the letter. Scholarly scene at Oxford, British literati. Literati?
Sure.
Okay.
Literati.
In general,
Hey, listen, if you can have the paparazzi, you can have the literati, right?
yes.
People who are.
Corduroy Panzers. Roy Campbell.
He was basically, he was a writer that Lewis had kind of satirized or kind of
Okay.
criticized in his writings.
And at least advertising.
Yeah. So then, of course, what happens is they're at the Eagle and Child pub, and they're talking, and this guy's listening into the Inklings meeting, and he's like, "I'm so and so," and he starts talking to them about literature. W.H. Auden and other people who
Sure.
he kind of Tolkien saw a bit negatively about their views. I can't remember.
Upon reflection, it could have been like a reference to somebody who was aggressive in the professor's like a Harper or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Only in the literature.
Here's can I read the one quote here, Chris? It says, this says here, the story I most enjoyed was the tale of Greasy Epstein, the sculptor, and how he fought him and put him in the hospital for a week. However, it's not possible to convey an impression of such a rare character, both a soldier, he's talking about the author, both a soldier and a poet and a Christian convert. How unlike the left, the corduroy panzers who fled to America, Auden among them, who with his friends got R.C.'s works banned by the Birmingham Town Council. So, anyway, that's what I thought.
Okay. Lots of online interaction last month from Artemir, Pieter Collier, and Jeremiah Burns in the UK. Theater made comment, as yet unpublished letters of Tolkien, but till 50 letters have been transcribed but not yet published. So, book volume 2, I suppose, is forthcoming. Or a rework of that existing volume.
No, it's supposed to be new too.
Oh,
What was that last comment?
He's talking about the,
1,250 letters have been
Yes.
transcribed but yet published. The question is, are there any that get inserted into this chronology, or whether
They're all I mean, they're all, this guy, he's the webmaster, and he might be listening to us right now. We're talking about Peter Collier, who's in Belgium, and his website is www.tolkienlibrary.com.
Yeah.
And anyway, he's, Johan is Artemis.
Anyway, yeah.
So the question had to do with whether or not those will be published. I have no idea, but basically he's contacted Christopher Tolkien, and I guess these letters have been transcribed from archives somewhere.
Sure, and as long as
he's-
they're just scholarly published online.
Well, I don't even think they were published online. He's basically sent Christopher the transcribed files, the transcriptions of the letters,
Okay.
and Christopher isn't against it, them getting published, but he's so behind on all the projects that
Sure.
this just hasn't gotten done.
Sure, you publish it.
We hope so.
Question brought up by Brand's daughter, Green Dragon, reference in the Fellowship of the Ring to Ents at the northern frontier of the Shire, actually an early clue to the fate of the Entwives? Or was it written by J.R. Tolkien before he really had decided anything on? However, since he kept this reference in, one wonders if J.R.R. Tolkien kept the possibility open. He never settled this in his other writings, no matter how tantalizing this would be. His last word on the Entwives is that they left the Brownlands with Sauron's forces, spoiled the cultivation efforts, and turned into a waste. No more was ever known. Also, it was discussed storm over Gondolin was shut down. Really?
by the Tolkien.
Was this an independent, like Hunt for Dawn?
Yes, it was.
Same group?
No, French group.
French.
It was a French group. They had a website dedicated to it, and basically flying under the radar. I mean, well, I shouldn't say it that way. They were out there and seemed to be, no rumbles of any problems, and they got a cease and desist letter in like February.
Yeah. So, I think that is an interesting thing about other countries' laws versus the U.S.'s laws. The U.S.'s laws allow for satire and other scholarly work.
They weren't intending
A lot of
to
borrowing.
satire.
Reference of one author equals plagiarism. Reference of many sources of work equals research.
Interesting. Here, here.
Hear what? You're saying?
So, here we are.
Was that the last point?
The last point is we are going to read letters
Finger points.
84 to 89, and that we are going to meet today,
If you remember.
if we remember.
Actually,
Which I didn't
the notes
remember
say-
until about half an hour before.
the actual notes say last year.
Yeah,
but
actually,
we-
I cooked the books, and I changed the notes
cooked
to
the books?
retroactively reflect the change. I went back a month in time.
Revisionist history.
That's right, and I convinced myself in the past to change the date.
I don't believe this.
Second copies.
Give me one.
Rohan's silent in the chat room.
Okay, in the chat room, but he said.
He's in the Google plus hangout, but he's silent for the moment.
Okay.
But we are glad he's there. We haven't really said much of comments yet.
We welcome and
Generally, we just start reading the letters and then from there, for conversation.
comments or laments or
Let's eat grandma. Let's eat grandma. Comments save lives.
Why would you want to eat grandma?
Hungry,
Chewy.
cannibalism.
Chewy.
There's nobody else.
I would prefer a pro-ment than a comment. So
There's a new plugin called Soundation. Create music with your friends and group plus hands. See, I've been trying to figure out how to play Tolkien-inspired music at the beginning and the end of each of our broadcasts. Because with Middle Earth Radio, Middle Earth Talk, I've done that with the Middle Earth Talk shows.
Right.
It would be a really nice touch.
Well, Hawk, do we have any people chipping in on was it our Facebook or no? It was actually the actual Google Hangout page last time on the site. I think it was the Google Plus.
Yeah, right now, Google Johan has not commented.
Okay. All right.
He's
Well,
probably waiting
maybe
for
because
us to
there's very
start-
little to
start reading.
comment on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not too bad. All right. So, thank you, Chris, for reading the
Are you a
notes.
potato with opinions?
it's a shame.
Oh.
Lord, deliver us from the fury of the.
So what if he's in the raw? How do you? How would you?
Donations.
What's the difference between a raw commentator and a?
All right, let's get on track.
I was gonna say, what's the difference between a rock and a hard
Shall I
piece?
pull a word of the day?
Yes, please.
So,
Be most appropriate.
new thing we started last month is doing one Elvish word per day, or I mean per meeting. Word of the day, word of the month, I guess actually, from the Vinyar Tengwar. This is a collected volume 1, issues 1 through 10. I have many of the volumes collected, and you can get these from them. I forget their website information right now. I should get that. Put a note in there that I should provide the Vinyar Tengwar group's web and email information.
Got that.
Okay, then you get it so that other people can get that. So, the first one we did last month, I think, was just Dol. We went with D-O-L as in head.
Yes.
Parts for a start, you know, not everybody part, but some. It's like Dol, you see like Dol Amroth and such, right?
And it's
Or
Dol-
or Dol Golder. So let's see if there's any others that.
Chum doll, dairy doll. This brings
How about?
meaning to Tom Bombadil's song.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just so you know, we're broadcasting live over the internet. If you,
You're very welcome.
we're happy to have you here. We just want you to know you're live on the internet.
Anything you say
So,
may not be used against
both video and audio.
Okay.
We won't bother you.
It's-
No, it doesn't bother us.
We don't bother us at all.
We want you to know you're on the internet. That's all. I should probably put a little sign right
I'll
there.
go to a sign.
So how about today we do Roma, R-O-M-A, not, and this is not the, Roma,
Gypsy.
the gypsy. This is Elvish, which means shoulder. Shoulder. Roma,
My Roma.
R-O-M-A. There's no accent mark on either vowel. So that will be the word of the meeting today. Roma meaning shoulder in Quenya. So there we have that.
So it means shoulder. Can you think of any uses in place names or anything like that?
There's something nagging in the back of my head that there is something that uses that. Romena? Isn't there something Romena? I swear there's some places.
Oh, there is Romena. Isn't that on? Isn't that on? Romena, isn't that on the island of Numenor? What that was? Was
Hmm.
there the harbor? Oh,
You're right.
city, I think.
And that's Roman. No, that's not Roma. But you never know if it
Throw a
was.
pen, please, in there. I'm not public.
And projectiles flying at you. Right. Letters of J.R.
I do that for you.
Okay.
Paper?
Paper's paper.
A copy on that.
Yeah, we could use it for, sure, that'll work. Just write it across this way.
There's Roman Dasil also. But I don't see any
Broadcasting
letters.
And roll. What they want to do.
You're on the meetings. I'm sorry, I didn't have any time for preparation. I'm juggling 3 papers due Monday, so.
Checking paper sounds like
Romano.
a light job.
There's Roman, what? Yeah, I can
I said it's a light job.
I'm used to juggling 3 fruit. They go all over the place.
Yeah.
Especially with different partner groups, that nobody's really doing on top
I'll
of
get out the watermelons and the chainsaws. It gets a little messy.
it.
Yes, it's good.
Roman Dasil and Romana are the closest, but they don't really fight.
Some more specific references.
Nothing I'm finding. Okay, that's a bummer, so we can, there'll be some link.
I read this back to Silver Line. You've got a copy.
Or something.
So meanwhile, if there's anybody tuning in, Artemir, can you think of any Elvish place names that use the word Roma, which means shoulder in Quenya?
It's the root.
Sorry, it's a root word, yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I guess we can start with the first letter. What was our first one to start?
It was 84. Just catching up your notes. So, all right, so this is the Vineyard. What's your Vineyard?
Vineyard Tengwar.
Thank you. For the month is.
ROMA, there are no accent marks.
Okay, got that. We need their website and is that
Website, email list, subscription, they have an email list.
Oh, great.
We can join.
Wow,
I've been on it
that
for
feels like
years.
the old good old days. List serve.
I have multiple email lists.
Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, merp@merp.com and list of Tolkien scholars and
The original spin.
Spokane 2600 and many others.
Okay,
Spokane ASL.
email list. Okay, so Hawk's gonna read from.
Well, yeah, it's just a short one. I'll read two. Number 84, from an airgraph to Christopher Tolkien, October 12, 1944. I began trying to write again. I would, on the brink of term, ! On Tuesday, but I struck a most awkward error 1 or 2 days in the synchronization versus importance at this stage of movements of Frodo and the others, which has cost labor and thought and will require tiresome small alterations in many chapters. But at any rate, I have actually begun Book 5, and at last about 10 chapters per book. I have today sent Leaf by Niggle to Dublin Review, as the editor wrote, asking for a verse or narrative.
Aha!
It's really bizarre.
I will have to look that one up.
We should devote one whole meeting to that.
Yes.
I've read that one. I mean,
Yes, I read it a long time ago.
Is that the Tales?
Oh,
You don't know the book of
Is it the Tales?
Well, no, it's in that,
It's in the little handbook,
yeah.
which of course I didn't bring this time.
no, well, no,
pretty sure.
I usually bring it. Gosh, man. Yeah, I should have looked at it.
well, that's okay, because we're just
Actually, you know what I have?
bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a
So,
electronic version.
so what does he mean by Leaf by Niggle?
It's the title of the story.
It's
Yeah,
a short
the
story
artist.
he wrote.
Niggle's the artist.
Leaf is the artist.
Right. He wants to paint a tree, I think,
It's a bush.
but he gets into so much detail because he doesn't
Do you
leaf
want
by
us
leaf
to-
by leaf.
It's a suspense story. So.
Okay.
Well, no way too much.
Oh, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Oh, we already spoiled the fact it's a leaf. Sorry, guys. Leaf by Niggle is about leaves.
Is this a tobacco plant?
Oh.
And starts with long bottom?
No, I think it was like a vine or something.
That's hitting below the soft farthing there, Chris.
It is.
This woman decided she was going to die once all the leaves fell off the bush. So
Next month, a study on the effects of nicotine on hobbits.
So I think we should put for next month, why don't we do reading from that?
It's
Actually,
How long
It's
is it?
short.
it's short, it's a short story.
It's as long as a letter.
Have we started again?
Okay, next month.
We'll do reading from Leaf by Niggle and discuss it further.
Very good.
So,
All right then.
that also gives everybody a chance here to dig it up and read it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And provide insights.
So book 5 is the second. No, it's the first part of the Return of the King, right? Yeah, that's right. It's book 1 and 2 in the Fellowship, book 3 and 4 in the Two Towers, and
The Reader's Guide. You can use the Reader's Guide. Man, I forgot my actual books. I just brought all the references. But no, the 2-volume set, Skull, and you can use it, or the Lord of the Rings there, either one you can reference.
You mean the book is holding everything up?
Book and. Hey,
Save the
hey, hey, hey. Do you need a bag there?
I was trying to save
Do
the
you need a bag as a bookend?
I'm missing that.
All right, here.
Bag and.
Oh, good grief. Mr. Underhill.
That's the chronology. Do you want the reader's guide?
Yeah, that's.
Sorry.
You can go ahead and put that back there to support it.
Trying to keep it up with the stories.
Sounds good.
That copy on the book.
Well, letter 85 gives the answer.
Oh, follow up, huh?
Right then.
So
You wanna go ahead and read it?
Speculation. You will
from an airgraph, 16 October 1944, FS 56, which is in sequence. I have been struggling with the dislocated chronology of Me Ring, which has proved my precious.
I'm pretty sure that's a typo.
Yes. Which has proved most vexatious. That has not only been good with my other more urgent and duller duties, but has stopped me getting on. I think I've solved it all at last by a few small map alterations and by inserting an extra day's Endnote
Yes, hum, 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 hum.
and extra days into Trotter's Chase and Frodo's Journey, a small alteration. In the first chapter, I have just 2 days from Morannon to Arthelion. But now I have lectures again, and also Pearl.
Okay, short letter. There's a lot in here, so let's break it down sentence by sentence.
It says our audio is kind of quiet.
Who said that?
Our audio is
Silver.
quiet.
I think it's Artemir. Unless that's someone else.
I don't know. I think it probably auto.
Right. I know. I hate the auto control when it takes over.
Okay, we're working on the volume.
Or just speak loudly. Is
How
all.
do you know
And carry
whether I
small
know controlling the button? How did
Oh, yeah, it's
I have
turned way
no trouble controlling the volume of
Yeah.
my
See,
voice.
it's the Google Hangout is controlling it, and it's not letting me.
Right,
It's not giving me an option to not do that because I went into control.
right. Well,
It's not.
We need
You
like
used to be
a
able to control that.
override.
Now it won't let me.
Authorization override. We're like Nick Fury.
authorization
Jerks.
override.
And complex.
0, 0, 0.
Clapping him out.
Destruct.
More Star Trek references. My goodness, that is annoying.
Google would never give anybody manual.
Yeah, it won't let me stop it from turning it down. So when I talk, it drops it down. So then you guys can't be heard.
Yeah, Hawk. Just tell him it's up down, will you?
Shoot me now. Thank you, sir. Can I have another?
Wait. Let me put my head next to his, and then we'll use only one vote. Hawk gets up.
All right, I'll just keep turning it up when it switches to you guys. I hope that helps.
Because we're so important.
Switch.
Yeah, you're important, aren't you? You're from Oregon.
Are we using a willow switch?
Oh man, we're full of puns today. Sheesh.
Oh, but
All right. So go ahead and read the next. Or did you want to discuss that further?
yes, actually we do.
Okay, discuss that.
Discuss it further. Aha.
Discuss amongst yourselves.
First of all, we're reading from a corrupted copy of Tolkien's letters. So, it's
What?
ring.
yeah, it's supposed to say,
the joys of OCR.
I have been struggling with the dislocated chronology of the ring, but in ours it says, I've been struggling with the dislocated chronology of me ring. So
Maybe it just means he lost the ring.
It's
Sauron
Tolkien the pirate.
yeah,
Sauron,
we dropped the call.
Sauron
Lost the
dropped the
ring.
ring.
Okay. Well, the first sentence says, I've been struggling with the dislocated chronology. So he's still obviously working through a lot of pain, Sturm und Drang, because he's realizing that this immensely complicated storyline with multiple subplots has finally got him in a corner where he has to actually correspond it to a real world or.
You mean he actually has to do any work?
Yes. And I have he was not cut out to be an analyst who is very much into the whole everything needs to synchronize, everything needs to correspond. And Tolkien, I don't think he was really that kind of person.
That's a new job.
Make sure all the transactions are synchronized, right?
Yeah.
Unlock stuff.
Whatever.
I need to get those TPS with my
Office space.
Okay. So
transactional processing system.
okay, so the next sentence says, I think I've solved it all, at last by small math alterations. So obviously he was saying, oh, I made them go this distance in only 10 days, but in another place that distance took them like 30 days. So he has to actually stretch out certain portions of the map to fit that.
I don't know, they could have gotten a hold of a potion of haste for that.
There you go. And by inserting an extra day's end loop, that's kind of funny.
We are not hasty.
I mean, you would never want to cut the end loop to a day shorter.
No.
It must always go longer.
No.
Longer.
It takes a long time to say anything.
That's right. I wonder what a filibuster would be like.
You said that too quickly.
What would a filibuster look like in an end loop?
Oh, eons and eons.
Well, that's
And furthermore, as my old auntie used to say.
My old
when she was an egg.
Oh. Oh my goodness, Liz with us today.
Well, as long as they're wearing pink shoes when they do the filibuster, it's supposedly all right then. Politically correct there.
So, does the world pass into the next age when the ends go?
It could be.
Yes, we'll watch you.
Okay, so Trotter. Who is Trotter here? Extra days into Trotter's chase and Frodo's journey.
Yes, who is structured?
Who is Trotter? Reference?
Somebody that
Artemir? Anybody? Answer is 3 seconds.
somebody.
2 seconds.
Somebody is Jeremiah Burns is trying to chat.
Yep.
So now when people click the link to our Hangout, they're not being allowed to join unless they were specifically invited because they're in our circle. They're just being directed to the play page on Google Plus, not on YouTube. And so they're actually trying to post questions there.
Oh,
so
no.
now I got a third place to watch.
Okay, now that might
But
be my
anyway,
fault.
Jeremy Burns, we
'Cause I
do
actually,
see you
from
posting.
my Google, from my own Google thing, I told them to click on that link for YouTube.
All right.
Middle Earth Radio.
Well, I thought it would let them join in, like Johan has.
Oh, but it has to come from your Google.
They have to be in the circle and
But how did we
invited
get
to
on
the
last
circle.
time?
Who?
Over Jeremiah. He piggybacked on Peter Collier.
Google changed.
I don't know. They keep changing every month. Google changes.
All right. Well,
Let's
look,
try
man,
that.
you could issue him a direct
Well, I
invite.
can see. I'm going to watch hosts here.
I think he'll be a
As well.
frequent participator. So
I hope so.
Shoot him
Welcome, Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Hey, who is Trotter?
Who's
See if I can
Trotter?
invite him.
So, the suspense is over, Chris. Go ahead and tell us. Remember?
No.
Strider.
Oh,
It was
Strider.
Tolkien's early
His
name
early name,
for
right,
Strider,
yeah.
which
I did
I think
not.
is hilarious to think of. Can you imagine? What does Butterbur say when Frodo asks him, "Who is that queer man in the corner staring at us?"
That, my fine young hobbit, is the dreaded ranger they call
Trotter. Poor guy's got the trots.
The image that pops into my head is a pig at the trough.
Wow, Trotter. Yeah, kind of pigs trot, don't they?
Yeah.
Horses trot.
Well,
Do people trot? I get to globe trotters. You trot globe, right? Sorry, I'm going a little too fast. Richard was developing a thought.
Especially in the Asian race.
No.
Joining.
No wiki, no copy.
Yeah.
I just don't think you'd be able to read them.
Pearl.
As long as you type them instead of
Well, no, it's not that. It's that I use the short.
as long as you could read your own. Type.
You
You have to kill your house, right?
only write.
Well, no, we have the ability to invite
First word, last word,
later.
So at least he's working on something interesting, which is Pearl.
Aye, that pearl, a great price.
That's Sir Orfeo Pearl. That's one of his, well, those two different stories, right?
Yes.
But you can get them, it's,
Sorrowfield and the Green Knight and
oh, right.
the Pearl.
They're usually packaged in one book. Yeah. Sir Gawain. Anything else in that wee letter?
Which, by the way, is on the reading list at the Oaks. That whole book.
Yes. A quick question. He says a small alteration in the first chapter.
You'll need to speak up.
Okay, right. Sorry. In letter 85, he says he made a small alteration in the first chapter of the Return of the King that he's just sent 2 days from Morannon to Ithilien. So just a reminder that the Morannon, of course, is the Black Gate of Mordor to Ithilien. So this would be paralleling Frodo and Sam, I suppose, when they go to the gate with Gollum, right?
Frodo's turn.
And then they ended up going down towards the secret entrance, the Kirth Ungol. So he's right in the middle of that. But the poor teacher doesn't have any time to write it. You haven't had a chance to read them.
You want to give me the extra one letter?
You can do A6.
A6 moves.
But you have to read it
Loudly.
From a letter to Christopher Tolkien, 23rd October 1944. FS 57. I've just been out to look up. The noise is terrific. The biggest for a long time. Skywide Armada. Sounds like DA. I suppose it is all right to say so, as by the time that this reaches you somewhere, it will have ceased to exist, and all the world will have known about it and already forgotten.
No email back then.
There seems to be no time to do anything properly, and I feel tired all the time, or rather bored. I think if the djinn came and gave me a wish, what would you really like, I should reply, nothing, but wait. With regard to the blasphemy, one can only recall, when applicable, the word, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do or say. And somehow I fancy that our Lord actually is more pained by offenses we commit against one another than those we commit against himself, especially his incarnate person. And linguistically, there is not a great deal of difference between a... I'm not going to repeat that. Without reflection or even knowledge of the terror and majesty of the one judge and the things you mentioned, both the sexual and the sacred worlds have ceased to have any content except the ghost of past emotion. I don't mean that it's not a bad thing. It is certainly very wearisome, saddening, and maddening, but it is at any rate not blasphemy in the full sense.
Seems like he's referring to a letter of Christopher's that he's replying to some comments that Christopher had made. regarding people and the words they use, and being bothered when you use a word that's it should mean a lot, but it's made to feel empty because it's used in a light or kind of a maybe an irreverent way. Is that what you get from this?
Well, am I allowed to bring the Bible into this?
Well, Tolkien did. I mean, as long as you respect
In
everybody else's
the middle
opinions.
of broadcast right now.
Go ahead, Richard.
There is one story in the Old Testament where a guy makes an oath that if he can kill all these people, then he'll sacrifice the first person he sees when he returns home.
Jeff does.
And his daughter greets him, so he ends up having to sacrifice his daughter to God. And
Obviously,
I
not a
think
good-
that gives you a idea of how God views people
rationals.
throwing oaths out and not really meaning them. Most of the time we're just saying meaningless oaths
Sure.
that we're just throwing out there to give emphasis to something.
Well, don't you think too, Richard? I mean, I think that's a great point. But I think that also, as we moved away from oral cultures, it seems like maybe oaths have also meant less, at least spoken oaths. And so then, therefore, I mean, when I say oaths, I mean like a promise or something. It seems like
Yeah.
words definitely.
Word becomes more. People don't value their word
They don't.
anymore.
And therefore, things that should mean a lot, words that should mean something very special.
The written word used to have a magical weight to it because not everybody can read.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so much true anymore because most everybody can read. Not everybody can, but a lot of us can.
That's ironic.
So it's been demystified.
The opposite from the New Testament, you have heard it said, but therefore I tell you,
Let your yes be yes and your no.
let your yes be yes and your no be no. Meaning, don't swear at all. Have enough integrity to say what you mean, and you don't need any of those swearing.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying, Chris, that there's this human dynamic where we seem to throw in more words to make it sound like our language is more
Throwing in the
more well, you can really count on this, or
it's to add weight to whatever you're talking about,
The
or
more
make yourself seem more important.
The more someone sells something by oaths or promises or by any of those other things, the more now, as I'm older, I tend to disbelieve that message even more.
interesting. And
Whereas if I have someone who's genuine and real about their product, but it'll get the job done.
So does that.
I'm tending to believe that person more than the one who sells me a bridge.
Jeremiah was able to join. I was able to send an invite from this account to him directly, and he was able to join. Welcome, Jeremiah.
fun little
On what you were saying, in some of the psych classes I was just taking recently on personality and on deception and a few other things, one of the things they talked about is each time you say, well, honestly, well, to tell you the truth, the less somebody believes what you're about to say. And it makes them more likely to discount what you were saying before. It now implies that and people do respond to that in a negative way.
wow.
When you say, well, honestly, well, to tell you the truth, well, you know.
To be honest,
Yeah, the moment you involve honest or truth in what you're about saying or whatever,
On the other hand,
it makes them trust you
when
less.
your intent is to deceive, some people use the technique of becoming angry and loud, and then on the theory that their listener becomes afraid to question what they're saying.
well, obviously there's both form and function going on here, but it's interesting to look at what Tolkien seems to be saying and responding to is that when we use words in a way that they're not meant to, that may not be in a sense blasphemy, but he says it's wrong. He's saying it's wrong. Is it blasphemy? It's interesting what he's commenting on, and I'm not sure whether the context here is that Christopher was saying something regarding people's words against, the divine, where people are just throwing words very disrespectfully around, or is it talking about, like he says, both the sexual and the sacred words? I mean, those are two big taboos.
In the
Still to
in the
this day.
strictest sense, blasphemy is invoking God's name in vain. Meaning, you're using His name in a manner that would accrue attention, but you don't want the attention.
Sure. Well, like I tell my kids, if every time I hit my thumb with a hammer and I said their name, how would that make you feel? But I like what Hawk said. I think, and it goes back also just some connections we're making. Certainly, a person like Tolkien cared a great deal about words. Words should have meaning. If words have little meaning, then why are we using them?
Mm-hmm.
And that reminds me of what Lewis said when he was in Oxford, just working through the biography by Alistair McGrath. That got me for my birthday last year. And one of the things that Alistair McGrath says in his new biography of C.S. Lewis is that he heard people, he'd have private lessons, so he'd be a tutor, and he would tell people, they would come to him and they'd try to defend whatever paper they were doing. But a lot of times he said, a lot of poor thinking went into it, and so a lot of what he was doing was simply showing them that what they were saying wasn't clear, wasn't direct, wasn't valuable, to boil it down. And that's a huge, that kind of confronts me, because I think, obviously it's easy to use language in an empty sense, or to just talk. What's the Shakespeare quote? Sound and fury signifying nothing. Something about words.
I wonder what he would have thought of a popular book that we try to teach our youngins through in public school called 1984, which was written in 1948.
Yeah, which it's a favorite of mine. And my girlfriend's. It's so much a favorite of hers, she got her phone number to end that way.
Wow.
She went through multiple iterations so she could get what she wanted.
Nice. Are we still on?
Yeah, I was just adding another person.
Okay, cool. Well, and I just feel that it's one of the foundational things in our country that we need to uphold, is that you can disagree freely with anyone, but words should not be used to denigrate. So when I'm discussing maybe religious beliefs, the dialogue is what's important. It's the meaning that you're seeking together. And there may still be disagreements at the end, or you might find common ground. But it does pain me how we do live in. I have a sense of humor. I do find it funny when you get satire and all that. But I think we have come to a time when it seems like almost nothing is sacred.
Right.
And how do you deal with that? Because words are tied into life. And so if a culture is developing in such a way that something that's sacred is seen as sometimes almost funny, like, if you're serious about things, people, it makes them nervous almost, that we have a hard time, which goes back to the amusing ourselves to death. We're so geared towards entertainment, and I'm just as guilty, but if we're so geared towards entertainment, then we're not entertaining ourselves, and we have to actually think seriously about what really matters in life. Well, okay, what do we do?
Another huge factor in military culture. We're taking kids that aren't old enough to drink legally. That doesn't stop them from drinking. But they're getting away from their parents, and their parents have always told them not to cuss, so a way of exerting their independence is to cuss with every word.
Especially if you're in the Navy.
Oh, I don't know. I think the Army. I think all the armed services.
Yeah.
The Army is pretty, and for military
Did he attest to that?
is
Also mechanics.
Yeah.
I was an automotive technician for more than 10 years. And
It's part of the culture, huh?
And an automotive instructor at the American Automotive Institute. Salty language. Which,
So the military reference that Richard made, and bring us full circle to the beginning of this letter, what is the Skywhite Armada that Tolkien is referring to here? What do you think he's talking about? October.
I think he's talking about feedback.
October 1984.
1944.
Sorry. 1984 still.
Big Brother's got it's on your mind, eh?
That was when Big Brother invaded.
also when the Apple Mac came out.
I'll look it up if you guys want to talk about the next letters.
Just so you know, we're currently broadcasting on the internet.
You're welcome.
But you're welcome to be there. We just want you to
We
know.
just want. We just have
This is
to
a
let you
live
know.
internet broadcast.
We're just. It's a club. We're meeting to talk about the Lord of the Rings. So
So
sit
you're
down,
welcome to
enjoy
be there.
yourselves.
You're welcome to.
We just have to warn you.
We just want you to know it's public.
Yeah, we don't want people to be surprised and find out. Oh wow, that is. But you'll be far away. You're at the very.
We're happy to have you.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. We'll try not to bother you.
One implication of this is the Plain Language Society and the Plain Language Acts that are going to our state and federal governments, which I happen to love.
For the legalism stuff.
Which says, look, if you want to be clear, and of course the lawyers don't like it very much.
Yeah.
Because
It doesn't give them wiggle room.
it doesn't give them wiggle room.
It doesn't help their jobs.
But it helps, it does help give the government and all its interfaces with the public in the terms of forms and websites and other things, a review of thinking very clearly about what is being said and how it's comprehended and what to define.
Right.
And I'm a huge fan of that. I try to incorporate that in,
Well, it makes scoping so
in
much
my
easier
work.
when it's clearly.
So language in that respect is very important.
Jeremiah says, I feel like Tolkien referenced the exact point of not being old enough to drink, but old enough to fight in a war, somewhere in his letters.
Yes, that is familiar. And now that you mention that, it is a funny kind of
Sad irony.
irony.
Back to the country that you can't have a drink.
Yeah, you're really gonna want it when you're.
I can't find anything right now from October 1944, but maybe we can refer to that next time. So obviously there was probably a great amount of probably a large amount of Allied planes, probably quite a few American ones as well, and they were going to be on their way to Europe to try to crush the German resistance as they were continuing their retaking the continent. This is only a few months after D-Day, so.
That could be further reinforcements or something.
The Operation Market.
I don't know, when's that? Right here? Okay,
So aggravating, it takes over. Do you want to read the next one, or are there any further comments on that? Brian, is it your turn?
sure.
Okay.
Did you get through?
Yeah.
I've got one.
Okay.
That's it's hot to copy. I think it's hot to.
That's my vote.
I would understand it.
Oh, since we talked about machines, I agree.
Okay, so
Okay,
which
are
one
you
are
letter
you reading?
87 now, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. And am I reading quick then, this one or that one?
This is, I can turn that one on if you want. 'cause it's
No, that's
closer to
fine.
you.
So as long as you can still hear me. Letter
Trying to hear
87 to Christopher Tolkien, 25th of October, 1944. And this does not have an FS number on it. Dearest man, here is a little more of The Ring for your delectation, I hope, and criticism, but not for return. 2 more chapters to complete the 4th book, and then I hope to finish the 5th and last of The Ring. I have written a long air letter today, and shall write again, of course, before your birthday. I am afraid this little packet won't get to you in time for it. Dear Mr. Tolkien, I have just finished reading your book, The Hobbit, for the 11th time, and I want to tell you what I think of it. I think it is the most wonderful book I have ever read. It is beyond description. Gee whiz! I'm surprised that it's not more popular. If you have written any other books, would you please send me their names? John Barrow, 12 years old, Westtown School, Westtown, Pennsylvania. I thought these extracts from a letter I got yesterday would amuse you. I find these letters, which I still occasionally get, apart from the smell of incense which fallen man can never quite fail to savor, make me rather sad. What thousands of grains of good human corn must fall on barren, stony ground if such a very small drop of water should be so intoxicating. But I suppose one should be grateful for the grace and fortune that have allowed me to provide even the drop. God bless you, beloved. Do you think the ring will come off and reach the thirsty? Your own father. It's nice to find that little American boys do really still say, gee whiz.
So lots of people are complaining about this auto mic problem. Apparently there's a registry hack you have to do to stop it. Jeez. Anyway, so comments on that?
You lost the connection on this one.
Oh, well.
11 times, and he's 12 years old. So when did he start reading? 8, 9, 6?
I'm guessing probably around when he was maybe
If he's a fast
9 or 10
reader,
years old.
it could have taken him a day to read.
Very few people.
I've done
Yeah, but he had to go to school. The real boy.
that during the summer.
Is it summer in this one?
Well, it's not covered.
Over the summer you put it.
Oh, good.
June.
I've been having trouble getting my machine to connect because I think there's some of these signals.
So while we're working out the technology issues, so one of the interesting comments here that we could discuss is fan mail and just the relationship that Tolkien had with admirers. Any comments on that?
Actually, he's also referencing the gospel in an oblique way. With the incense which oh man, work like failed saber.
Corn must fall under that, yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of talking about the gospel.
Mm-hmm. So, I think it's interesting. I know C.S. Lewis got a lot of mail from young people about his Narnia Chronicles. I think it's great that Tolkien did have, some young people who really, really enjoyed The Hobbit, and it just shows how it was meant for children. Not little children, but for children as well as adults.
Not Peter Jackson's version of it.
No, this is true. But the book.
The Hobbit was more aimed at children because it was
Windows
aimed at
just did an update, so it broke network. It just now did an update.
but a little for
Windows.
Windows.
Because I haven't used that laptop in months, so it ran.
Well, we can. That's fine.
Microsoft
Right.
virus strikes again.
And that's probably what was using up the bandwidth too.
Oh.
It's clear that my son, when he used it, must have turned back on updates back on. I always turn those off.
Yeah, so do I get
All
yelled
right.
at.
Anyway,
We're talking about fan mail, talking about the comments on the story from America. Kids saying "gee whiz."
gee whiz really is an underused term, says Jeremiah. Now, not the 1950s.
40s.
Let's see. The best part of the fan letters, I think, especially after Lord of the Rings, so I'm jumping the gun a bit here, was that they, due to the relentless request for more information, vindicated Tolkien in his own belief that there was a market for the Silmarillion. That's true. And then also, Silver says in the Merc chat room that we are soon going to make a new Art of Mard release. We've made huge changes. Art of Mard is their particular fan-based Tolkien role-playing game. It's not licensed the way the One Ring is, but it's fan-based. As I have ARPG, they have Art of Mard, all coming from related but slightly different approaches to game mechanics for role-playing in Tolkien's Middle-earth and beyond. So, sharing that with those who are viewing. And you can get to that through ardamard.merc.com, or I think just arda.merc.com. That's MERP. It stands for Middle-earth Role-Playing.com.
Of course, that's right up Hawk's alley because he heads the RPG research website.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a plug for that?
Plug! I don't need, I've done it several times, I don't need.
Okay.
I say that and then I'll go.
Why don't I get any traffic?
That's it.
Oh, I get it, that's right. There we go.
Please ignore the floating part behind her.
Do you want me to read the little snippet and then a long one, or?
No, that's a good comment from Jeremiah. I think that whole thing about fan mail, what did he say? It kind of authenticating really the interest for more. And actually, Tolkien refers to it at the end of this letter where he says, do you think that there's enough interest in, that the ring will actually satisfy the thirsty? Oh, if he'd only known.
Indeed.
If he'd known then what we know now, would that have affected how Tolkien would have written?
I think it might have pulled him in more directions.
I
He
think
might have
you're
had
right.
even more trouble finishing.
He would have said, "Oh, I can't get it out now."
They would have overloaded.
People will, they'll
Would
need
have
more
mattered too much,
background,
right.
more
I
knowledge.
might have also looked at the copyright issue and been discouraged because of
He would
because
have.
of commercialism.
Yeah. So let's see, fan mail. Desperately trying to keep up with the
But if he had copy left of it, he would have left his son in a dire strait.
I wish we had Christopher's letters. I'm sure Christopher still has them, probably, but I think that's an interesting. We're only hearing one side of a conversation here.
Yeah. Often.
Often.
Frequently, not someone who's lost his parents.
Yes. Oh! Yes. Sorry, Pirates of Penzance reference there. By the way, Jeremiah and I ended up finding out that we, oddly enough, have a connection. He's living in a place that is basically part of the same borough council in England, near Manchester, that I was living in.
Oh, really?
So we know some of the same places and everything.
Well,
Pretty funny.
nice. See, he's added, that's part of the tragedy of hindsight. His publishers weren't keen, but Tolkien ended up being right, though he does admit in a letter later that they were actually right to do Lord of the Rings first. And that's probably true. It would have been too obscure without getting the fan base hooked. I mean, basically, it's a gradation of commitment. Hobbit is the easiest, the lightest read, the least commitment. Lord of the Rings is the next level of commitment and effort, and a little darker, a little more convoluted. You have to spend more time, a little higher language base. And then the Silmarillion jumps up a significant amount. And for a lot of people, I mean, I remember trying to read it in 6th grade and really not being able to finish it. I understood the individual words and such, but I wasn't getting it.
Which one?
The Silmarillion, just the whole in 6th grade. And
I think there's
I was only starting to read like Greek literature and all these other things, so I wasn't getting a lot of references yet.
It was more of a
In
scholarly.
8th grade, it was better.
The Silmarillion was more of a scholarly work, more abstract.
Well, I don't know what's scholarly, but it was the higher style.
it's like looking
Like
at the
Oedipus Rex
same
and such.
world from like 40,000 feet,
Right.
and that is harder. I think.
It doesn't give you the direct individual connection that most people like when they read.
Well, it doesn't have the
fiction.
carrots
I was able
Yeah.
to
in the
read
narrative
it.
story where it pulls you along.
I was able to read it.
Well, although there are embedded stories in it, like Turin and Bermaluthian, but
Which is pulled from the latest edition.
a lot of people though have trouble with remembering the elves, like Finarfin and Fingolfin and all those.
It's like a Russian romance.
Johan says, I am not a researcher of RPGs myself, but I read the announcements of RPG research. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Jeremiah says, haha, I tried the Silmarillion first in high school, and I still didn't get it until the second time through.
Yeah.
And each time you read it, it's, you get more and more,
There's
especially as you read the history of Middle Earth. Each time you go through these, you find more and more, which that's the beauty of it. It keeps you coming
I
back.
guess I need to
Great
get
story.
my hands on the original publishing version because it doesn't match what I remember of it.
Really?
I got a third edition, and I think they chopped a lot.
It was published posthumously, so the first edition of the Silmarillion only came out in like 1977, I think.
No, it came out
Yeah, it was
after
70.
I was born.
Well, it came out in 77.
Yeah, I guess that would be about right. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that was actually one of the first things that Christopher Tolkien published.
I need to try and get my hands on an original version.
I recommend there's a really
I have it. I
beautiful
forgot
one.
to bring it today.
Is yours the hardback one?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
The
a
original
nice one
artwork
with all the
and all
artwork. Is
that.
that Ted Nasmith?
Oh, no, it only has, oh yeah, it does have the armor.
I think the one copy I have has Ted Nasmith and I'm not sure of it. It's some of the illustrators for the Tolkien calendar.
Because it was, the way I remember reading it, it was narrative, then historical discussion, then a ballad thrown in the middle of it. So part of the difficulty was switching between these different narrative styles. Because in some ways it's hard, going from a factual discussion in the abstract to a rhyming story, ballad kind of thing. It's a bit of a shock.
But I don't want this land. I just want to sing.
No! Monty Python reference, okay. Geek out.
Yes.
And the castle.
All right, so I read the next
Yes,
snippet, the long one.
the lengthy.
Well, there's a snippet and then a long one.
Well, read the snippet.
So I'll read, oh no, or is it the same?
No, no.
Oh, it is, it's a little snippet and then should I jump to the long one?
Shall we even call it letter 88?
Yeah, letter 88 is really, really short. From the letter to Christopher Tolkien, 28th October, 1944, FS 58. This empty year is fading into a dull gray, mournful darkness. So slow-footed and yet so swift and evanescent. What did the new year and the spring, I wonder? Not a whole lot to discuss there.
I wonder, here's a quick question. I know there's not much to go on here, but it says from the letter to Christopher Tolkien. So when Christopher Tolkien edited this book, right,
Mm-hmm.
what did he cut out?
Yeah. Well, who was it? Somebody,
Juicy bits.
the fellow who was here, Peter,
Yeah.
said that he's got access to like 1,000 more letters or something.
Oh, yeah.
There's 1,000.
They've transcribed them apparently from
many more
from
letters.
archives,
Right.
but
There are many, many more.
but Christopher's too busy with those projects, he hasn't gotten around to giving the go-ahead on publishing. But I wonder if he removed some things because it was more personal nature.
Possible.
I wonder.
Or he just didn't see anything was relevant to the books. Like it was just, personal and not really.
Okay.
Johan says, I did think the Silmarillion was pretty good the first time I read it, and my love and respect for it has ever grown since then. I agree
That's
with you there.
right. Yeah.
I'm still trying to work on that symphony to go along with reading the first chapter of the
Did you see on the One Ring somebody done that? Well, actually, no. They didn't compose original work. They just tried to pull in
a listening
symphonic,
list. Right?
Yeah,
but they didn't
to go along with.
from scratch.
No.
Right, which
Which
is
is
what
really
I've been
what it
working on
deserves.
slowly. I have the first templates and a few minutes of it, but it's a major task.
Oh
Might be a
man,
lifelong thing.
yeah, for sure.
Jeremiah says first editions aren't overly expensive. I got one that's in decent enough shape for £30. It's not mint or anything, but it's not beat up either.
Jeremiah, just for if you're interested with the first edition, saying I saw online Oxfam has their website where they put on books that are for sale for their charity. And last summer, I saw that Oxfam had a copy of the this would be the 1963 edition of The Hobbit, which would be basically the 25th anniversary copy, except back then they didn't call it that. And it was for only, it was really amazingly a good deal. I don't know where you look for first editions and everything, but I found that in England too. Is that if it isn't a particularly high profile one, then you can. But I know that Peter Collier probably has some pretty sweet first editions.
I don't normally, Jeremiah's responding, I don't normally look for first editions, but I wanted a nice hardback copy. I saw this one on eBay. I think I picked mine up at, because I had an old paperback Valentine from the late 70s, early 80s, whatever it was. Totally beat up. I still have it, but it's falling apart. So I finally picked up one, hardcover, and I think I got it at the bookstore downtown.
Antiques?
Antiques bookstore, because they had used books mixed in. And I got it for like the retail price of whatever it was way back when. It was nothing.
The alternative to that is that I think over time we've seen actually better and better editions coming out. So even though I like first editions and early
typos,
well, like what was this? Yeah. What's the guy's name who did the Hobbit, the annotated Hobbit, and everything?
Right, it's right there. You're right.
These are just,
well, that's okay. That's the history of it. Go to your right. Go right, all the way to the right, just before keep going, right there.
This one.
That's annotated Hobbit.
And it's just beautiful.
Right, by Douglas A. Anderson. This is an updated, revised, expanded version.
And we talked about this before. I don't know if everybody remembers, but the illustrations. That one time we talked about the illustrations.
Right.
And even like some of the original illustrations Tolkien made, like the keyhole, remember, in the door,
right?
And things that were left out of the book.
Quality was so bad.
It was so bad back then when it was first.
Well, that was in the history of The Hobbit too.
Okay.
Different versions too.
And then, so now actually, if you possess a copy of The Hobbit, like the 75th anniversary copy that I got at Barnes and Nobles, is actually probably a better quality, and maybe more in sync with what Tolkien wanted to.
Right.
If can I just make a
please?
You know what I'm going to.
John D. Ratliff, he was at our Tolkien Moot 2008, 9, something like that. Yeah,
and it's what Tolkien wanted too, because he kept arguing for what did he want? He wanted so he wanted the sun. Yeah, so this is really what he wanted, but the coloring was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And along with the dragon and the sun being red, he wanted the Lonely Mountain to be red because he wanted it to look like the sun was reflecting off of the snow. But his children said, "Dad, it looks like a dessert, like a cake or something." So he said, "Darn it, I guess they're right. I'll have to go along with just the white cover."
Say,
the mountaintop.
Going back to my pet peeve about dragons.
Yes.
You can clearly say from that illustration that it's a 6-limbed dragon, 2 wings, 4 limbs.
Yeah, right. Integrated arms and wings.
Yeah.
He was talking about that last month.
Oh.
I hate
See,
that.
Tolkien has it with separate arms and wings.
Oh, you're right.
I hate that one.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just personal. Everybody's different.
Yeah, that's a personal belief. Sorry.
Johan says, I'm not really a collector unless one can being called a collector of everything Tolkien wrote and information about him. I'm with you too. I don't collect for the collector value. I collect for the information and the usability, not to just have it. If it's not of some value, to use, then I don't get things just because they're collection value. Jeremiah says in response, I think that's a real risk for Tolkien collectors. I don't know how Peter Collier manages to have so many excellent editions. I'd have to remortgage several times over to have his library. They're supposed to be releasing a facsimile first edition of The Hobbit this year. It should reflect the 1937 edition, i.e. the original Gollum story prior to Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
Johan says, I remember that the second edition of the annotated Hobbit was released in 0203. I got the HarperCollins edition immediately when it came out in 03. Yeah, this is the one here. This is Houghton Mifflin. annotated, revised and expanded.
Which edition is that?
So revised and expanded, it's 37, 66, 96, 97, 2002.
It is.
Yeah, 2002. So, yeah.
Okay.
Jeremiah says the facsimile edition is scheduled for October, by the way. Had an updated email from Amazon this week to say it had been pushed back. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's good to know.
And maybe that's a good thing, because if they're rushing it to print, they'll just make more mistakes.
Errors, yeah.
So. By the way, can I ask a quick question here? Unless you were in the middle.
Please, no, please.
Before we move on to the next letter, when is the date on the publication of Beowulf? Does anybody know?
Oh, the next one?
Yeah.
Was that this summer? I thought it was fairly recent. It was,
It's supposed to be soon, but I wasn't aware of the date on that
I don't
publication.
know. Let's see.
It was Tolkien's translation from the Anglo-Saxon.
I know not.
I saw a.
Okay, IGN.com says, okay, The Guardian, his 1926 translation. It doesn't say, that is Marshall's, let's see what The Guardian, so it's The Guardian that announced it. So The Guardian says, what? Almost 90 years after J.R.R. Tolkien translated it. So I have the Seamus Heaney version that's mentioned in this article. And in that article, Seamus Heaney directly, go ahead and hand that to me, directly thanks, attributes Tolkien for the popularity of Beowulf. And I've used that in several of my papers as a reference. However, when it comes to considering Beowulf as a work of literature, there is one publication that stands out. In 1936, the Oxford scholar and teacher J.R.R. Tolkien published an estimate of Beowulf without recourse to this immense body of commentary and elucidation.
Whoa, he says impossible.
Yeah. That's from Seamus Heaney's translated bilingual edition. And that was.
Of course, we don't have to read it, we can just go watch the movie.
It was the guy who played Highlander.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Christopher
Lambert. Yeah.
Lambert.
It was a kind of Road Warrior style version, kind of post-apocalyptic situation-ish.
What happened?
Connection dropped, it appears to be back. So they do not say a release date in the article. So that's something we'll have to find out. Johan said, I believe I only have one of two Houghton Mifflin books. I had to get those because it was a bit tricky to get my hands on the HC ones. Yes, I also got that email. The facsimile edition is also the one that will come with previously unreleased audio material of Tolkien, if I remember right. So they're still talking about the other, yeah, they don't have any updates about.
Okay.
So we don't know at this point. And yeah, our network is choking.
And then that was referring, was it, were we talking about The Hobbit?
That was the facsimile edition of the first edition of it.
Okay, of 1938.
6, 7, yeah, I've lost
I
the
think it's 1938.
19. Left and right here.
Yeah. I stopped trying to connect.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's really bad.
And all over the place.
Sorry, guys. It's a lot of people
Joyce.
are hopped on right
here,
now
yeah.
at our cafe that we're at, so can't really help that.
Next Thursday? What's next Thursday? Johan just said something next Thursday that we missed the topic. Oh, wow. Oh, aggravation.
Chris, what does it say if they're on the corner?
No, that was just said, yeah, next Thursday.
Well, there's
The
some more comments.
release of Tolkien's Mail.
Oh, okay.
Next
Oh,
Thursday.
Oh,
Next
that's
Thursday?
Oh, great.
Holy cow!
Wow.
Let's camp outside the nearest bookstore, right? We'll
I'm not.
hijack the van as it comes in with the boxes. Sell them on the Ukrainian black market.
You get the Barnes and Noble at Northtown, and I'll get the Valley Barnes and Noble. Okay.
All right.
Should we go steal some armored trucks for cheap armored?
We'll just do it like
I got
the
my
Italian job.
Infinity.
We'll drop them into the street and underneath.
I got my old Bronco and weld on
Yeah,
pig metal all
like
around
the
it.
18.
And Hawk needs.
I was thinking of the Gauntlet with Clint Eastwood, the bus.
Hawk
Have you ever
needs to
seen
get
that?
aunties, and then
All the
we'll
cops
have
are out to
corner
get
the
him.
market.
He welds in all this pig metal inside of a bus, big iron, whatever
My
they call
goodness.
it, and is drives through in a bus. Like every cop in the city is shooting at him.
Seriously.
Gauntlet, because they're trying to stop him from getting this witness into the to testify.
It's almost as good as Escape from New York, or Manhattan, rather.
Earlier in the movie, he's in a house and they crawl through like the cellar, but it gets so shot full of bullets it collapses eventually.
Oh my goodness.
It's called the Gauntlet, like Clint Eastwood. Oh well, yeah, it was everybody. It was all these dirty. It was all about dirty cops.
If only Tolkien's works were causing mass mayhem as people try to go. Well,
Do you think he needed more balls?
Oh wait, the movies.
oh yes, oh that's right.
Yeah, Peter Jackson's next version is going
No,
to
you
interpret it into a modern.
No. Walmart will get a hold of this and have a Tiffany Frodo, and then
Oh,
they'll be killing each other over.
oh my goodness.
That's Siegel plan of
Okay,
Sauron.
okay, I have to
Evil.
write that one down.
Sorry, I crossed the line.
Sauron would be proud.
22nd of May for Beowulf for the release. Johan says, I hope I will get it on Friday at least, so I won't have to wait all weekend with everybody else while everybody else is reading it. When the Soda Bruin came out, somebody through Tolkien Society, somebody sent me a copy that I got a day before. So we did the release party. I had time to start prepping. And so I did a whole reading of the intro, the preface, and the first chapter.
Way to go.
And that's up on the speaking of letters, number 89 is 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long.
Well, we better do it now, otherwise we won't have time.
And it's focusing mostly on their Catholicism.
Okay.
It's talking about
Do you think it'd make more sense to kind of
guardian angels.
read it and take a little more time and then come talk about
Until next
it? Let's do that.
session.
I think that's probably.
This is a long.
I haven't done it
And
before.
though it's a good insight into Tolkien's religious beliefs and such, and he does make a few little references here and there.
Well, we've
It's
not
mostly
skipped
more
any of
personal,
Yeah, we should.
so it might take a little more. Grown log indeed.
Well, when we get back on, I should
Please wait. Please say a command.
are we on that?
Well, almost.
There was an error loading your app.
Come on.
Curses on you, Google.
That's my opinion.
Okay, this is just a quick aside about dragons, Richard. How come all these other dragons get these awesome names like Gnarum and Calagon and whatever else?
I mean, it's Smaug.
Ski, the worm of the north. But Smaug, come on. That's not a noble name.
I don't know what his, if he had any, did he have any other permutations of the dragon name?
Smuggalicious. The Smugginator.
Smuggalicious.
I don't know.
Well, my latest album is Boodalicious.
I know, I saw that.
Well, actually, there's
Something chewing gum.
don't you think there's an industrial,
Blow this bubble and you will experience nothing.
an anti-industrialism kind of thing too with smog? Because smog is an artifact of
Oh, that's a bit literal, but think a little allegorical for Tolkien.
And complete works in Blu-ray from the big broadcast I did.
Yes.
It was a birthday present.
The dragon was
Inside the dragons. They were mechanized.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we all know how Tolkien felt about
So you, Richard, before we
yeah,
get
if you want me
dropped,
to
what were
finish
you gonna
that
say?
thought, or
Go
should I
ahead.
just sum up like, and that's how I feel?
Oh, come on. Say something
Go ahead and
profound.
finish it, and then we have some comments on Smog.
Morgoth and Sauron were crafters. They were trying to get their evil done by things that they were making.
What was that?
and twisting.
What was your point? Just
Oh, it's kind of their evil was things that they made. It's not that they're evil things that they were doing. Everything evil that they were doing were they were using tools that they'd made to do it.
I'm sorry. I think you're fabricating this whole thing.
Oh.
You know, it's the nature of evil.
Well,
And torturing people.
Oh, come on, that was a side hobby.
So are you saying that Peter Jackson's interpretation of how Smaug could be used
okay, I've got it.
to turn into evil, you're discounting what Peter Jackson's interpretation of that is?
Peter Jackson's interpretation is using the lens of the rest of the fantasy literature that
Again.
is crude since the books were written. So it's gone off in a completely different tangent from anything that Tolkien said.
Tangent is a good word.
So Peter Jackson's idea of the nature of a dragon is based on fantasy works that have to do, well, you know, if it's a large flying thing, it has to be a bat-like thing because that's the only thing we know that can fly.
Based on the CGI version of Beowulf.
Oh.
Hello.
Which came first, the chicken or the dragon that preceded it? Well, I'm afraid this debate will not be resolved in this millennium. However, I do want to suggest that the typical man versus nature themes that you see in many horror films are directly related to man's trust in the 20th century to machines and industry versus, and so it's not industry that tended to get demonized.
Yeah.
But nowadays, what do you see?
What
You
do I
see
see?
more.
As I see in the sewer department
Yes, please.
of the city of Spokane.
Give us the dirty on it, okay?
You're bringing in our dirty laundry here.
Oh, I hope not a laundry.
Well,
Wash your laundry.
the issue is so pervasive that the only way to clean up the river is to clean up the sources, meaning take away phosphorus, dishwashing detergent.
Which now makes a dishwasher useless.
Yeah, I know. But it's kind of that losing faith in the mechanism to remove phosphorus as the solution. And so therefore you go upstream as you go to the source.
But you're saying that maybe there's a way of dealing with it down here, but people...
There is a way of dealing with it. It is more expensive, by the way, than just making a law saying, oh, that's illegal.
Right.
There is a way of
And
dealing
there's
with it.
Idaho countrymen.
We can outlaw sewer systems, that'll solve it.
Which work a lot better. So, the commenting on smog, they've been calling
Yes,
here, and I
please
lost
do.
the comments here because I'm afraid
Yeah,
I'm
we want
losing
some comments.
The name, this is from Jeremiah, the name smog is the past tense of the primitive Germanic verb smugan, S-M-U-G-A-N, to squeeze through a hole.
It's
So
not like
really-
wisp of smoke.
Well, no, I get this feeling from what he's saying, like you're supposed to have this big, bloated. I mean, that really is a word picture to me of this thing that's burrowing itself into the mountain and squeezing it almost in parasitic kind of a form. You know?
Okay, yeah, parasitic,
Creepy.
yeah, I like that. Because he was definitely parasitic. He didn't create anything, he just took
Right.
and consumed.
I guess one of the things that
Yes.
bothers me most
I
about
call
changing
dragons.
smog into a fat form, it's an influence of evolutionism. Whereas, well, you know, there's nothing in nature that has 6 limbs, so we're gonna have to rewrite the dragon they have to do.
Which leads to my pet peeve as a teacher of science, is how many movies do you see, or even kids programs, where you've got an animated spider that has 6 legs.
Yeah.
And it's like even the Rankin Bass spiders, I believe, have 6 legs.
Instead of 8?
Instead of 8.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of an evolutionary Nazism.
Pretty soon it'll have just 2 legs and look like this.
Just last week, my boys on the way home from school had said something about spiders have 6 legs, and I pull out. I
You
pull
set him
out,
straight.
on the internet,
How'd
and
you
I
say it?
said, "Show me a spider that has 6 legs."
I'll show you. Pluck, pluck.
So, how did you
No
say
spiders were harmed in the making of this
commentary.
But notice,
The opinions expressed are not necessarily those of Air Tolkien Society or any of its derivatives.
Or that affiliate over there.
but notice my methodology was to teach the boys not by saying,
No.
"Silly boy, spiders have 8 legs." I said, "Show me a spider with 6 legs."
Show me.
And I'll believe
Another
you.
musical.
Can I see a 6-leaf?
Jeremiah says, but remember, Smaug was once a younger, softer dragon once upon a time.
Jonathan Edwards has essay spiders.
Actually, it's a great essay. I love it.
Yeah.
Smaug was an individual out of a race. There were
Stick to dragons, not spiders.
There were
Wait,
the irony,
spiders are in the
the
book.
The burnt
Yes, but we weren't directly referring to
The burnt teeth. Is it burnt teeth?
The bird teeth, what?
Teeth.
The bird teeth, the wither teeth.
Oh, the
Wither
wither
teeth.
teeth, right. Yeah.
Wasn't it named that because they had a dragon problem?
Yes. Okay, so let's get back to this whole thing about dragons being young. And so obviously, he would have been able to wriggle through when he was younger.
Did you want to share, Hawk?
Jeremiah, back to the spiders. Equally, you could shove him in a box of spiders on his head and tell him to count the legs. Traumatic? Yes, but educational.
I think child services.
Now, do I need to say that these
He's an England,
children,
they don't have CPS.
do I need to say that these children are wards of the state and that they are CPS children?
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah. That,
Oh.
well, that was,
Oh, thank goodness.
bring us in, Hawk.
What?
Yay! All right, so back to
Coming up to our
smog.
last 15
Yeah,
minutes
we're almost
or
done.
10
10
minutes.
minutes, yeah.
Smog. Okay, so I'm going to make a reference. So this is the old English Smugen.
Smugen? Let's see.
Smugen. Oh, this.
S-M-U-G-A-N. Yeah. It's German. Past tense of the primitive Germanic verb smugen,
Which
to
means
squeeze through a hole.
Infiltrate.
I feel like that every day when I put my pants on.
I thought that was more like
I
navigating
feel like that
the
light,
educational
everything's too
bureaucracy.
small. Door frames, beds, cars.
Yes.
Wasn't that more like the
Phil Preston's bed.
educational, navigating the educational bureaucracy?
Absolutely.
Just squeeze through a hole.
Squeeze through a hole.
Mm. Bureaucrats in general, yeah.
And then they tried to plug the hole.
Okay, so.
This bureaucrat in the sewer system knows about squeezing through a hole.
Touche.
Keep your dirty secrets to yourself.
Are they still
Okay.
putting
Yeah,
that
I
holes
do
in
sewer
the-
The
work.
phosphorus is literally squeezing through 0.5
Micron
holes.
Right, yeah.
What?
Yeah. Filtration cells.
Oh.
And that is what we are installing between now and
Aha.
2018.
No, we really need our nano dragons.
I did sewer work. I was a head of maintenance for a few hundred apartment units back in Utah. There was one building that the sewer pipe was slightly lower than the next connecting pipe, so that'd always get jammed up, and it would always, we'd send letters saying, please do not put feminine hygiene products down the toilets, because those would get plugged up there, and I would have to crawl underneath the crawl space, and you break the rubber seal and let all that flow to unplug all of it, so then you plug it back up and then send another letter out saying, please don't put those products in the toilet.
By the way, I have a question. Are they
Yeah,
still
oh,
called,
that's just lovely.
are they, access points still called manholes or not?
They are called
They're still
manholes.
That's
sexist. huh?
discriminatory.
The ones at the ends of
Those are
sewer
people
pipes
holes.
can be called cleanouts
Okay.
from time to time, but they are still
Yeah, don't we need to change this? to
not
people?
gender neutral.
And to get us back to Smaug, I have to ask a question. Where does this whole idea in medieval dragon lore come from of having a horde? Where do you think that came from originally?
Where,
No, it's a
actually,
question
what's
to
the
put
gender?
there.
Next
That's why Jeremiah says, ew, and then Johan says, smugen has to be related to words like smeagol, and also to modern words like Swedish smyga, S-M-Y-G-A, which means to sneak.
Sneak!
What's the gender on that? Is it masculine? feminine?
Oh, I don't know. On German?
In German, everything has a.
That's a verb. Only nouns do that.
No. What? Every object in German has
Object.
an implicit.
Yes.
Has an implicit.
Every
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But
So-
not the verbs themselves. Only Spanish has.
Right, but smog, because he's an object, has an implicit gender.
I'd say der. It'd be probably masculine on this.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, next month, let's come back on that whole dragon question.
Yeah, I think-
Follow up on and where are the roots of the
Yeah, I think
horde?
that'd be a good discussion on the origin of smog and the other.
Why do we think greedy when we think dragon? in the
Yeah,
past?
and why the
Because
horde?
It's in the original legend. Every time you had.
Yeah, but there's always a source for that.
Beowulf contributed to that as well.
Useless.
The dragon that came in. that eventually took out Beowulf.
What's the legend where the guy had bathed in the dragon's blood, but he had a leaf on his back, so his vulnerable spot was in the shape of a leaf?
Well, bathing in dragon's blood. That was the.
Wasn't that one of the basis for the?
Wasn't that one of Homer's works?
No. This is Danish. Like
Viking.
It's Beowulf. It's from the same people who do Beowulf.
Well, no, that was
Related.
unknown where that.
That's folklore.
Yeah.
There must be another related fairy tale. I don't know. It's Sigurd?
No, it wasn't. In there.
I don't remember that. Well, are there any last comments?
Yeah, any more comments, questions, etc. that we should discuss before we wrap up here?
Go around the horn. Any of us here have anything else we want to bring up this month?
Making great progress on the prototypes for role-playing games for therapeutic and educational purposes. It's the first tested prototype, tested by our professor at the university. I'm going to be revising it. And then we're working on both a tabletop and live action version that's going to involve the public transit system, not the people, I'm not negotiating with the public transit system people, but that the game will involve the public transit system in Seattle and Tacoma with autism spectrum adults, and hopefully this summer might get implemented. And at first we'll start as the tabletop adventure, learning the system, and then we'll become live action where they actually use the system. And it'll be kind of an adventure to thwart some evil villain's plot to spread a virus around the city that's going to turn everybody into zombies. Which Seattle has an annual turn everybody into zombies, zombie fest thing.
So we're going to do this.
So I don't know if it'll happen then.
I'm sorry, I was born in
It may not work out
Seattle,
in
and
the
my
timing,
meeting,
but-
everybody's already a zombie.
Yeah, that's why I need the coffee.
Is that enough sun?
That's why I need the coffee, yeah, liquid sunshine.
Zombie apocalypse happens every day in front of a coffee stand.
Right.
Every morning.
Anyway, so RPGresearch.com will be posting a new video giving an update on all of that.
Very good.
So, okay.
I have no further comments.
I have moved to the valley, and I am still unboxing books, but I am just about done with The Wind and the Willows with the boys.
Nice.
They have enjoyed it so far.
Johan
There are
said,
lots of complex words to learn.
As long as you have bookcases for all your books.
Chris, are you winning or books winning in the boxing?
So is your house bigger for books? I mean, you have
Smaller.
smaller. Oh,
Downsizing.
We're squeezing it. No.
any last minute requests, questions, comments before we wrap up the broadcast? Let's see, Johan says, the past tense, okay, well, they are pronounced, okay. The past tense of smyga, S-M-Y-G-A, is S-M double, what is that? It's not an umlaut, it's the double dots over the O.
Oh,
It's the umlaut was the steps of the triangle. Anyway, S-M double dots O,
the
G.
two dots are the
That is the umlaut, okay,
This
so
is the
S-M,
circumflex.
okay, so S-M umlaut O-G, which might be connected to S-M-A-U-G.
Right.
While they are pronounced quite differently, S-M-A-U-G sounds kind of more Norwegian to me.
So would you support the Smaug, not the Smaug?
And then Johan says, I'm sorry that I didn't participate more in what was discussed at your meeting. The volume made it a bit difficult. Sorry for that, and I may have to do a registry hack to fix that.
Yeah.
And they keep complaining to Google, but apparently hundreds of people are complaining.
Next month we'll try to see if we can work around that, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah says, my wife hates it that I say Smaug correctly. Nothing more from me other than a big thank you. Johan, why don't you hate her back for saying it's incorrectly? Jeremiah, nah, but one of these days I'm going to have to correct her pronunciation of the Silmarillion. Well, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining us. How did that microphone work for you?
I still haven't been able to use it yet, but I've got it with me.
You just have to try. I have time.
I've been trying. Yeah.
Because that will be my third mic.
Yeah.
That could potentially plug in.
Well, I'll
So
get
we
back
can
to you
get better
before
audio.
next- Okay.
Especially when I have.
Sorry, I actually brought it
devices.
with me just in case you needed it.
Oh, okay. Which I know we could use that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Especially since I'll have at least 3 or 4 devices here next time.
Let's do that. Let's have
We
a
can
mic.
each be mic'd on each one.
Okay.
I think bandwidth is big.
Well, if we switch to only one camera and the rest are just audio, That's what I noticed is when this switched to video by accident, because it would do it sometimes, that's when we drop. But when I turned off, and you only turn on your mic when it's your turn, it works okay. You just have to kind of pay attention to it.
So here's a question: do we want to just say when our next meeting is going to be? Because it looks
So-
like it's the 14th or the 21st.
Probably gonna be easy. to
So
do.
June 14th is fine for me. I don't have a problem with that.
Do you know? Or we could just say we'll
I
post
will
it on the
have
website.
I'll be done for the
Calendar.
school for the quarter,
Um,
so I'll be free.
Actually, wasn't finals this week?
Not for my school.
Yeah, school's out, but.
For me, it goes
I
till
don't
June
know
9th,
what-
9th, 10th.
Well, just do look
I
up.
think I'm here.
We'll get these notes out sooner than last time.
All right.
So Jeremiah,
But we'll-
here.
Plan tentatively on June 14th,
Well, yeah,
1 p.m. Pacific time to 3 p.m.
but we'll get that notes out there and see if we can. Hey, I wonder too if they want to be on the Tolkien list for our updates.
Are you guys on the email announcement list at tolkienscholars.org? If you're not, simply send an email to list-subscribe at tolkienscholars.org and then watch for a reply. You may need to check your spam folder, but do not send it from a Microsoft-enabled account like live.com or Outlook or Bing. They're jerks. So Gmail and everybody else is fine. Just don't send it from a Microsoft account.
That's been scientifically proven. They're jerks.
Yes, that's a technical term.
Beowulf.
If you have a problem, then contact tolkienscholars@gmail.com, and I'll manually subscribe you to the list. And on there, we basically announce, that's the first place when we discuss meeting changes or other things, topics, etc., and the meeting notes. They usually go to that list first before they're posted on the website. And then from there, I try to hurry and get things on the website and all the social networking. But the email list is the quickest, easiest, and most up-to-date.
So the next meeting in June, we're going to tackle Leaf by Niggle.
We have a lot for next one. Yeah.
We're gonna, and this big long letter and.
Yeah, that's a letter. Yep. What's going on. And then also, I think it'd be good for us to touch base on Beowulf and see if anybody has any comments, if they've gotten a hold of a copy of it by next.
Yeah. Hunters.
Oh,
And they sleep during the day.
okay. So remember last month we had a reference in Tolkien about cats, saying that he thinks cats should be named after, if anything, places in Mordor. The Rankin Bass version of Smaug looked like a cat, actually. Cat-like face.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Like a shred. Had to get that one in.
I think the dragons had the mythological dragon attitude, the base attitude is very good in mythology.
Well.
All right, many thanks to all of you.
And well met.
We appreciate everybody participating in all your comments. We look forward to seeing you next month. Please do keep spreading the word. I may just need to get a newer phone or something too, because my phone, I wouldn't have to use my phone because it's dying. But anyway, we'll try to have microphones next month to improve the audio. And
Wherever you are.
yeah, but meanwhile, thank you so much. And wherever you may be well. Namarie.
No matter